David Barnette, a creative and fun-loving author, has brought the Gulf Coast and the nation something we all need, a little comic relief.
My first article that I had published was for Mobile Bay Monthly in 1994, and that was just a little humorous piece on Mobile by zip code, sort of looking at who lives where in Mobile and picking out some of the little idiosyncrasies. And just on a hunch, I sent that into Mobile Bay Monthly, and they ended up publishing it. I was really excited about that, and that ended up going over pretty well. So then I came back a little bit later, about a year later, and basically pestered the publisher until I was able to get an intern position as in the editorial department instead of sales, which I had tried and hadn't done too well at. Then I, over the course of the next year, was able to go on and work as a co-editor with Angie Shimento, and we did that for 2 years. And while we were there, we did a couple of things trying to get more humor into the magazine. We found that the readers in Mobile were really ready for that. Mobile was beginning to feel, I think, better about itself. There was some sense of humor beginning to develop and a lot of appreciation for how Mobilians are different from other people in some ways. And so we did a list, 101 Ways to Know If You're a Mobilian, in the June issue of the City Guide. And it went over just so much better than we had ever thought. People were faxing it around town, and we'd go over to places and find it on refrigerators. It was the most exciting thing. So then a good friend of mine, Claiborne Walsh, who's sort of a frustrated, very creative writer herself, who's always looking for opportunities to share her writing, really encouraged me to turn it into a book. And at first I was hesitant because I had this thing that to be a writer I had to be very well read, which I am admittedly not, and have all this great experience. But she kept building me up on it, and finally we did it, and the bookstores were very, very receptive, and then one book just led to another. Mobile is just really fortunate to have people in the bookstores, whether they're independents or chains, that are really encouraging to local authors. And they told me that this was a type of book that was doing really well. It was easily merchandisable because of the size and was sort of appealing to people. And they encouraged me to do something that could have some national appeal. So I was trying to think of another group that I felt like I knew as well as I knew Mobilians, and with a mother and a sister and brother-in-law who were all teachers and a father who had been a principal, I decided on 101 Ways to Know If You're a Teacher. So then we ended up being able to take that chain-wide with Books A Million, and working with that with a group of teachers to develop this book and get it into school supply stores and gift shops. Then that led kind of coming back locally again to another book, Men Are From Mars, but the Peanut Man is from Mobile. And again, the bookstores have been so helpful. It was actually an employee at Barnes & Noble that helped me come up with the title. I did another 101 list, and I was a little bit worried about doing a sequel type book because the sales had been so good on the first book. I hated to come back and see it drop, and I wanted a great title, and one of the employees came up with that, and it's just been wonderful. Top of the Hill did the photography for the cover of the Peanut Man, so that kind of added a nice element to it too. I think probably the best first step to take, and I think I had an advantage here starting out with magazine writing, even though I didn't know it, and that magazines are so focused to a certain readership. And I think any person in a bookstore or a publishing house, anybody would tell you that the first thing to do is think about who it is that you're wanting to appeal to. And once you've done that and really identified a group, there are some great books. If you go to a bookstore and start out in the writing and publishing area, Dan Poynter has a wonderful book, The Self-Publishing Manual, which will really help. Some of the things you just need to know that I didn't know on the first book, like that you need to have a scannable barcode and an ISBN on the back of any book if you're going to ask even a local bookstore to take it. So there are some good resources like that. Another thing is to go into a local bookstore and look for local authors who have already done that. Give them a phone call. I don't think anybody minds that at all. It's nice to feel like if you've learned a few lessons, made a few mistakes, you can get a chance to tell somebody else, and you may also find that they'll appreciate your call because you may have new ideas that they've gotten so bogged down they don't have a chance to really see.